Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a airbrush review. Now this is a one-off custom made airbrush that I've done. Now we're looking at the PS270 by Mr. Hobbit. I'll pop a picture of the original brush up in the screen there. Now as you can see, this is a double action airbrush on a 0.2 gravity fed top cut to the top. You've got like a long body on this, a slant to the body at the bottom where you connect your airline. And you've got trigger adjuster so you can dial your trigger in. Now, I was chatting to a subscriber last night, we're on FaceTime, we're just talking about brushes, about the H&S hack that I did with the new trigger top and the trigger response on the H&S. And I picked up the PS270, put it in the hand, and when you put that brush in your hand, your hand feels stretched out as they do with that sort of length body of brush. So I took the back of the brush off, and that's the back of the PS270. Now, I've got some scales here, and the actual weight of this back part of the body it's coming up 26 grams on that. So that's quite a heavy piece. So I took the back of the body off, and I'm chatting to my friend on FaceTime. And I was just looking at the brush in my hand and looking at my finger movement when I was pulling back on the trigger. And the feel of the brush when you take the body off the back. Now, if you've ever seen other artists' airbrushes, there's a lot of videos on YouTube. You'll sometimes see artists working with the backs of the bodies off the brushes. Now, I can see why they do this is because you're getting another point of contact on your hand. We all know when you press the trigger, you can feel the trigger on the tip of your finger and you're moving down for air and back for paint. So you've got that piece where you can feel. It's all about the touch feel when you're picking some up, when you're using a spray gun. Same as a big spray gun. When you feather the trigger, you can feel the trigger pulling back in your fingers as you feather it. So you can feather your paint when you're painting. And it's the same for an airbrush. When you take the back of the body off, you get more feel through your finger to the back part here on your hand where the skin is here. You can get the chuck and the bit of the needle touching. So it gives it that little bit more control and feedback in the trigger as you're painting. So I took the back of the body off the 270, done a few little adjustments, and I'll talk you through that in a minute. Changed the crown cap as well, and I'll tell you why I changed the crown cap if you're a beginner, because this does sort of help. So we've now got, and I've designed the PS270s. Now, I had a cheap airbrush off Amazon. I can't really leave you the link in the description because I don't think you can get them anymore. I've just had a look on Amazon, you can't pick them up. And I took a few pieces off the brush and adapted it, and it just sort of went like Lego, and it just adapted straight to the PS270. So we've now got, where you've got your normal adjuster on the 270, you have to take the body off to get to your trigger tension. Now this sleeve that goes on the actual body now absolutely fits perfect and tapers up to the next part of the body. So this now just turns like that for the tension, and then when you want full tension, you just screw that up and that goes up to the body nice and smooth. I've chopped the needle down by 6mm, so ground off 6mm of the length of the needle of the 270 needle. I've put a different chuck to the back that's got an extra long body to it, and that body slides into this body here. So when you have the brush in your hand now, you've got your point of contact with your finger to the top, and then as it comes round, you've got this nice point of contact here to your finger, and it just puts that little bit of tension across from the front to the back on your trigger as you're moving, and it's made the brush feel a lot more sort of precise when you're going in, because usually if you have that piece on the back of the body and you're moving your finger on your trigger, this part is just sliding against the body of the brush. So all your concentration and movement to steady your trigger is on the tip of your finger. So when you lose the back of the brush now, and put your finger there and you've got this to the back, that gives you that little bit of resistance at the back of the brush, and it just feeds through the feeling straight to the trigger, and it's just made it incredible. So I did that to the back, done that to the adjust there, and then when I took this mechanism out here, where you've got your spring and you put the bit that holds the needle chuck at the back, it sort of slides in and the spring goes over the top. That spring just sits on the centre sleeve. And I held the brush up close, pulling back on the trigger, and you could hear that little bit of metal to metal action, that like little grind feel. So I took the back piece out, and the spring, I've encased the whole spring from front to back in that body in lithium grease, and it has just made the actual back end of the brush silky smooth now when you move back with the trigger. So it's just made it a lot more silky smooth. You've got the point of contact on your hand here and to the top, and it's just made it a lot more precise. And when you hold the brush now, before you had the heavy back end which stretched your hand out, now you tend to sit more comfortable on the trigger because you've not got the bulky bit at the back sitting here. You're sort of up closer, you put your other hand up to the Mac valve, and it's just made it a lot better. I changed the crown cap to the front because the PS270 usually got it looks like a crown with all the little points. This is just an Iwata off one of the HPC Pluses, the crown cap. That's a solid crown cap. Now what I like about that is if you ever want to do bubble back on a airbrush, you can't do it with the crown cap on with the PS270 one because you need to block the front. Now you usually do it by pinching over your needle and doing that. I'll just show you on that as well. I'll put a bit of water in. So you would pinch and you get bubble back. Now if you put the Iwata one on, and this is good for a beginner because I think it's always good as a beginner to work with a crown cap on because you always tend to dink your needle. But if you want to bubble back now, you can just put your finger straight over the crown cap, you're not touching the needle, and it'll instantly bubble it back for you. So it's a little bit more of a user-friendly cap on the brush if you're a beginner. We'll drop some paint in. And the actual spraying will be exactly the same as the 270. The other thing that I've done is I've highly polished the needle from about here right down to the point, put the needle in the Dremel and just really fine polished it so it is really shiny and smooth. There's no like little burrs in it or anything like that. It's really clean to the front, and that just makes your paint flow a lot better. But the actual trigger response, as you can see there as I'm working it on my finger, you've got point of contact here, coming back, point of contact here. So it just locks the whole movement in place. This paint is very thin, so I can turn the pressure down on this. But you can get super fine with this now, and you can hit the real fine you can hit it a lot easier. You will find with the contact on your finger to the back of the brush here, you can home in on your detail very quick. It's more precise because your finger here isn't sliding against the body and you're really trying to lock your finger off on the front, the tip of your finger. You're trying to really steady this part of your finger to get the detail down. But now, because you've got that point of contact at the back, you can hit it every single time. It's made the brush a lot more precise, lighter, more user-friendly with that crown cap on if you're a beginner. I just find it a lot more comfortable, guys. Really is. You can just hit them real nice feathered out dagger strokes with ease now, because you've got more control in the whole part of your finger. You can feel what it's doing. You feel the movement in the trigger at the back of your hand as well, and it just sort of all becomes one with the brush. Just feels better. And I think that's why you see a lot of artists airbrushing, even with microns. I've seen people airbrushing with the backs off, because you're getting that second point of contact with your hand and not just one point of contact here to feel what the trigger's doing. You can feel it through the back as well, and it just sturdies it up. I mean, they're super tiny little dagger stroke points on the ends of these here. They're tiny little flick outs, and it's just doing it with absolute ease now. I think this would be a really good hack on the 771 as well, because the back of the body of the 771 I think is horrible with the cutaway, especially when you're moving back and you get movement in your finger and you're rubbing along them grooves at the back. This, it just fits comfortable, and you can see I'm locking it into this part of my finger here. It's just made it an outstanding brush, better. I mean, that is ridiculously fine, and you're hitting it on point every time. They're 2 mil, little tiny little dagger lines with ease, absolute ease. Just made it a lot easier to hit them points with more control. It's more control in the brush with the back off, and that adaptation there, that adapted to it, it's more control. You feel more up and close. It's made it feel just like a completely different brush. It's brought you closer to it, and I love this piece here where you can hold the Mac valve as you're working. It just steadies you up again. Always use 2 hands with an airbrush. Don't airbrush with one where you're floating like this. You always bring another hand up, and you can rest your hand on your work. You can set your distance with your other hand, moving it in and out off your paper. And with this hack to the back, absolutely spot on, guys. It really is. Little bit of tip dry, and you're just on point. Tiny little dots with ease, because you can feel, you get that feedback in the trigger. So it's made it a really nice brush, and it was anyway. If you own a 270, you'll know what I mean. They are a brilliant brush, but now losing the 25 grams, having your trigger adjuster here for your tension is a lot nicer. It's made it a bit bigger, and it just blends to the body. The nice bit at the back that locks into the back of your hand just makes it feel better. So I hope you enjoyed my little pimped PS270s, one of its kind. It's absolutely brilliant, guys. I'm glad I did the hack to it. As I say, I can't leave any links to how I did it, so this is a one-off, but really pleased I did it. So thanks for watching. Don't forget, if you're new to the channel, click that subscribe, press that notification, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.